What is happening, folks? Welcome back to Southside Fly Fishing and another Scottish angling adventure. It's the first week of October, the very last few days of the brown trout season here in Scotland, and I'm here on the River Clyde in South Lanarkshire trying to close out the season in style. In today's video we'll get into some of the tackle, techniques and flies that I use to catch autumn brown trout and winter grayling. I'll show you how I rig a strike indicator to fish these flies as effectively and as simply as possible, and hopefully show you a couple of fish along the way as well. It's an absolutely beautiful morning. The autumn colours are popping here in the upper Clyde Valley, and for that reason I'm not going to waste any more time talking, so let's get into it. That's a brownie. Little brown trout and an unweighted nymph. Well, folks, that was a really cool fish. A small fish, but a very, very cool fish nonetheless. So what I've been doing is working upstream with a team of 2 weighted nymphs, fishing all of the deeper runs and some of the pocket water, trying to find feeding fish. But I got up to this pool here and noticed there were some blue wing olives starting to hatch, and to my surprise, bearing in mind this is the first week of October, there were 2 fish rising in the riffle at the top of the pool. One of the great things about fishing this indicator method is how versatile it is. So I simply took off the weighted nymphs, tied on 2 unweighted nymphs. I've got a pheasant tail on the point and an unweighted hare's ear on the dropper. Slid the indicator up away from the flies and just fished like a normal dry fly presentation. And pretty much the first cast that covered the fish, up came the fish. It must have taken when the flies were about 2 or 3 inches under the water. Set the hook and we're into the first fish of the day. As you can imagine, I'm keen to go and catch some more, but before I do that I want to talk a little bit about how I rig an indicator. So my approach to nymph fishing is incredibly simple. The rod I'm using today is a 10-foot 3-weight nymphing rod with just a conventional weight forward floating fly line. To the end of that fly line I've attached a 9-foot tapered leader which tapers down to 4x tippet, and it's on the tapered leader that I've attached my indicator. This season I've started using an indicator material and tool by strikeindicator.com. In the packet you get a little tool which is a thin piece of metal with a hook on the bottom. You also get some plastic tubing which you then cut into little 4 or 5 mil sections and slide onto the cylinder of the tube. You then use the hook at the bottom of the tube to hook your leader, and then slide the plastic over your leader to create a loop. From there it's a simple case of selecting the indicator material of your choice, trap it in the loop, pull the sleeve tight, and then a wee dab of gink, and that will float for you all day. When we're fishing in the autumn, and especially in the winter when the fishing switches over to grayling on the river, the most important thing I find is not the fly pattern you use, but how deep you fish. And by having that indicator just able to slide up and down the line, you can quickly go from fishing a rig of say 4 feet in depth right the way down to fishing a rig that could be, you know, 9 or 10 feet in depth. And the fact that I've caught that fish basically 2 inches below the surface of the water, again, testament to how versatile and how adaptable that setup can be. So now I know there's fish here and I know they're on the take, let's go and see if we can catch some more. What's happening, folks? So as promised, I want to take just a couple of minutes to talk about some of the flies that have been working well for me, not just today, but the flies that I anticipate working well for me throughout the winter. Generally speaking, we're using weighted flies with jig hooks being really effective at this time of year. I've pretty much narrowed it down to 5 flies which are going to be on my leader from now until the 15th of March when the trout season opens. The first of these flies is, of course, the pheasant tail nymph. If you haven't watched my video from Trout Tributary a couple of months ago, then I would highly advise you to give that a look, and you'll learn all about my love affair with Frank Sawyer's famous pheasant tail nymph. And it works for me just as well in the winter as it does in the summer months. The second fly, which is the one that's done most of the damage today, is my version of a hare's ear nymph. Again, traditional fly, very, very popular. My version uses a boosted natural dubbing blend from Trout Stalker Andrew, which you can buy on his page on Facebook, and a little micro glint tail, which just provides that little attraction point at the bottom of the fly. I tie it on a curved hook, I tie it quite buggy, and then pick out the dubbing with a Velcro brush before I fish it. And I find that this fly, in combination with the pheasant tail nymph, they account for most of the fish that I catch throughout the year, and as I said, winter is absolutely no different. Another fly that I use to great success this time of year is the perdigon. My favourite fly for imitating small olives which are around at this time of year. It can also be a good imitation for any midges that you find around at this time of year. I tie mine quite small, usually on size 16 or 18 jig hooks, with a little black tungsten bead on the top to give the impression of a thorax. I'm using micro glint for the body and a few Coq de Leon fibres for the tail. But when the water is low and clear like it is today, and I know that there are bugs around, which this fly is a really good imitation for, then the perdigon would be one of my confidence flies, October, November, and even into December. The fourth fly is my version of the Duracell, which is a fantastic fly for grayling, tied on usually a size 14 jig hook with about a 3mm bead. Again, I'm using that micro glint tail to provide a nice strike point at the bottom of the fly. For the body, I use a dubbing blend, which is a combination of brown spectra and purple ice dub, UV ice dub. It also has a spun CDC collar, which again provides loads of movement in the water, and this fly is actually accounted for most of the grayling that I've caught over the last few years on this river and other rivers in Scotland too. So it's one that's well worth having in your box. And then finally, the pattern that everyone loves to hate, the good old squirmy wormy. Controversial, it can be devastatingly effective on its day. And it's particularly good where if we do get a bit of winter rain that raises the water level and dirties up the water, then a squirmy fished close to the bottom in the slack water out of the main flow can be really, really effective, because as the water rushes through, a lot of insects, invertebrates get washed up from the bottom, and there's a good chance that the fish will be in a very opportunistic feeding mood in those kind of water conditions as well. So although it might not make you popular with your friends, the squirmy worm is one that you should definitely have in your fly box and use when the conditions are right, right the way throughout the winter for grayling. So that's it, those are my 5 flies for autumn trout and winter grayling. Without further ado, let's get into one last cast. what a day it's been so far. It's just gone lunchtime and I think I'm on half a dozen brown trout and 3 or 4 grayling. I've lost a lot of fish because I fish barbless hooks and I lose a lot of fish, but it's been a fantastic day, amazing way to kind of close out the season and just see the condition that the river's in. The grayling in particular bodes very well for the winter to come, and yeah, I'm very, very happy. So I know some of you will also be closing out your brown trout season, but really wanted to thank you for joining me on these adventures. We've done one a month this year, and as I said, we'll see if we can't get out and do a few more this winter. We might do some pike fishing, definitely do some grayling fishing, and with a bit of luck get out to do some saltwater fly fishing as well. I'm going to carry on back down the river and maybe do a bit more fishing, hit a few spots on the way back to the car. But if I don't pick up the camera again, then you know, as ever, thanks for joining me. Look after yourselves, take care, tight lines.